Bam Bam Bigelow was a 400-pound heat-seeking missile covered in flames and bad decisions. He moved like a cruiserweight, fought like a prison guard, and held grudges like a drunk ex at Thanksgiving. Behind the scenes, the man had zero tolerance for bullshit, and even less patience for clout-chasing backstabbers. If you ended up on his hate list, congratulations. You earned it by being either a snake, a sellout, or just too stupid to shut up. This isn't about kayfabe. These are the 5 people who genuinely made Bam Bam want to suplex drywall. And he'd do it. Flaming skull first. Let's start with Fritz Fun Eric. If Bam Bam Bigelow hated anyone who turned real life into a tragedy for profit, Fritz Fun Eric was first in line for a flaming headbutt. Bigelow didn't mince words. He straight up blamed Fritz for turning his family into a public obituary. While the wrestling world clung to the Fun Eric mythos like a Lifetime movie, Bam Bam saw it for what it was. One man's ego grinding his sons into the dirt with jackboot precision. Bigelow reportedly told more than one locker room, "You don't need a Ouija board to talk to Von Erich. Just ask Fritz what time the funeral is. That's not a jab, that's a fatal 4-way roast." Fritz paraded his sons out like championship belts despite addiction issues, mental health breakdowns, and injuries. He didn't guide them, he booked them into the ground and blamed the devil when the bodies started stacking. Bam Bam, who had seen the business eat men alive, considered it unforgivable. He once said guys like Fritz should have been powerbombed into retirement homes with no visiting hours. Cold. There's no record of them ever working together directly, which makes this hate even more personal. That's what made Bigelow unique. He didn't need to share a ring with you to want to choke slam you through the floor. He hated Fritz on principle, a man who weaponized family tragedy for territory ratings. That was Bam Bam's breaking point. If karma's real, Fritz is stuck in a celestial loop watching Dark Side of the Ring reruns about himself. And even that might be too generous. Jerry Tweet, aka The Wall, was supposed to be WCW's next unstoppable monster. But to Bam Bam Bigelow, he was just a walking drywall patch with delusions of Goldberg. If Taz was a human suplex, Tweet was a human sandbag. Bam Bam didn't just hate working with him, he questioned how the guy even found his way to catering without a GPS and a push. Bigelow despised that. He wasn't just mad Tweet worked reckless. He was furious that he sucked at it. The guy was dangerous for all the wrong reasons. Bigelow once joked, he's called The Wall because you spend 10 minutes trying to get around him and then he just falls on you. That's not shade, that's structural collapse. The match they had turned into a shoot midway through. Tweet tried to punk Bigelow with some stiff-ass offense, and Bigelow responded by beating him like a drum at Sturgis. Backstage sources say Jerry got read the riot act so hard even the ring rats took notes. To Bigelow, Tweet represented everything wrong with late-stage WCW. Pushed too soon, trained too little, and booked like being tall was a personality. He didn't hate Tweet because he was green. He hated him because he stayed green and got guys hurt doing it. Even after Tweet's early death in 2003, Bigelow never played pretend. He didn't do memorial bullshit. The man held grudges like they were championship belts. And Tweet was just lucky to not be powerbombed into the afterlife. Bigelow didn't hate Perry Saturn at first, but then Kevin Sullivan went full snake and stirred the pot like a blender set to nuclear. WCW, 1999. Sullivan books Saturn to go over Bigelow. Bigelow, the seasoned vet, says, "Yeah, I'll do it, but not like a damn punchline." Instead of sorting it out like adults, Sullivan tells Saturn Bigelow's refusing the finish outright. Saturn, who thought he was the next big thing, instantly popped off. Locker room drama hotter than a pyro malfunction. Suddenly, Saturn's acting like he caught the flu and the blame's on Bigelow's refusal to care. Bigelow's beef with Perry Saturn wasn't about personal grudge, more like a professional, stay the hell away from me warning. See, Bigelow respected hard workers who could tell a story without trying to murder each other mid-match. Saturn? The dude worked so stiff, vets thought he was auditioning for The Walking Dead, Wrestling Edition. Combine that with a backstage attitude that screamed, "I'm the future, so deal with it," and you have a classic recipe for heat. Saturn reportedly threw a punch at Bigelow during a heated argument, escalating their backstage beef from icy tension to full-on physical. Bigelow didn't back down either, which added real fire to their backstage animosity. This wasn't some worked angle. It was a legit fight, one of those rare moments when the locker room drama door actually got kicked wide open. Saturn might have been the future, but to Bigelow, he was just a walking lawsuit waiting to happen. Scott Hall walked into every locker room like he was God's gift to wrestling, and Bigelow saw through him like a wet tissue. To Bigelow, Hall wasn't cool. He was a high-functioning asshole with a 5 o'clock shadow and a 24/7 attitude problem. Their heat was real, ugly, and stretched from WWF to WCW like a bad rash. The tipping point? WCW. Hall came in late, drunk or both, and treated guys like Bigelow, real wrestlers who gave a damn, like jobbers waiting for crumbs. Bigelow told people flat out, "I'm not taking orders from some drunk who thinks the ring is a hotel lobby." That quote? Confirmed. This wasn't passive-aggressive beef. Bigelow hated Hall's guts. Hall also had pull with the higher-ups thanks to the Kliq stink still trailing behind him. That Kliq bullshit didn't fly with Bigelow. He'd paid his dues on the road, in Japan, in ECW, even with burns on his damn body. Hall? He'd show up, throw a toothpick, and act like the second coming of Buddy Rogers with hepatitis. They never threw hands, but Bigelow was never quiet about it. He hated Hall's arrogance, his no-shows, and how he coasted on cool while others bled for a pop. And Hall? He never apologized, never cared. It was ego versus principle, and the principle hated Hall's greasy, toothpick-flicking soul. To Bigelow, Scott Hall wasn't the bad guy, he was just bad company. If Scott Hall was the cigarette burn on wrestling's bedsheet, the Kliq were the full house fire. Bigelow didn't just hate him, he saw them as everything wrong with the business. 5 egos in leather jackets running the locker room like it was Mean Girls with HGH. Let's name the culprits. Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and X-Pac. 5 grown men who thought they were a revolution, but really just weaponized friendship like a backstage STD. And Bigelow? He was immune to that virus. The heat wasn't about one incident. It was systemic sabotage. Bigelow got blacklisted by their politicking. When they had Vince's ear, guys like him got silenced. He watched them manipulate cards, bury talent, and act like the business owed them a thank you card and a hand job. They turned the WWF locker room into a country club. If you weren't in the gang, you were in the dirt. Bigelow once said, "You had to kiss their ass or kiss your career goodbye." That wasn't bitter. That was observational science. The man didn't play politics. He played stiff, worked hard, and earned his spot. But the Kliq? They got each other over by playing Vince like a slot machine with daddy issues. It especially burned him when the Kliq started leaking into WCW. First Hall and Nash showed up with their smug outsider bullshit, then the politics followed. You couldn't walk 10 feet without tripping over a contract clause or a creative control clause, all written in crayon by Kevin Nash's publicist. To Bigelow, the Kliq weren't wrestlers. They were a boy band of assholes with merch deals. He hated what they stood for: nepotism, backstage coups, and the idea that loyalty was more important than talent. And the worst part? They won. They actually took over. So Bigelow didn't just hate the Kliq. He loathed them, not because they were powerful, but because they were fake, manufactured legends with backstage immunity and the integrity of a used car. Bigelow was a burn-scarred bulldozer from Jersey. The Kliq were velvet-wrapped viruses with microphones. No wonder he hated them. Bigelow wasn't your locker room politician. He was a walking fireball with tattoos, a conscience, and zero patience for backstage ego trips. He hated liars, manipulators, cowards, and anyone turning wrestling into a backstage chess game instead of a bare-knuckle fight with a finish. From drunken egos to mafia-style cliques, Bigelow saw through it all and called it out with brutal honesty that got you buried, not booked. They played politics. Bigelow hated the game and pissed on the controller. Like and subscribe for more shoot heat, savage truths, and wrestling's realest beefs. No myths, just fire. Thanks for watching.